Hello everyone, welcome to Akonomics. This is your first lecture of Intermediate Macroeconomics Part 1 of your Semester 3. So, in your second semester, you had a course on macroeconomics that was Introductory Macroeconomics, where you discussed about national income accounting. इसके बाद आपने डिस्कस किया था क्लासिकल थ्योरी where you had supply creates its own demand and you looked about certain equilibrium conditions giving you the full employment cases, okay, and then you proceed to Keynesian theory given by Keynes, which was demand creates its own supply, and you built upon the aggregate demand function. You also discussed about the multiplier, okay, so you discussed about income multiplier thing, investment multiplier, and so on. So you had already discussed about classical theory and Keynesian theory. Further, you also discussed ISLM. ISLM was neo-Keynesian theory given by Hicks. Okay. In this semester, apart from whatever you have discussed in the semester 2, this semester builds upon the other theories. The other theories are neoclassical theories, new classical theories, and you proceed on to the next schools of thoughts, which are not mentioned in our syllabus for semester 3. In semester 3, you will basically be limited to neoclassical theory and new classical theory. Okay. So, before proceeding to what are the theories to be discussed in this semester, we will briefly talk about the different schools of thoughts. Why? Because when you try to reach to the topics, then once you know the assumptions of those particular schools of thoughts, it would be easier for you to reach out to the equilibrium conditions. Okay, so one was classical theory, then you move to Keynesian ideas. So Keynesian was purely Keynes. Okay, so in Keynesian theory, we are talking about the economics that was propounded by John Maynard Keynes, which was termed to be Keynesian economics. Then you had neo-Keynesians, and these were the things that you have already discussed in your second semester. So in classical theory, you had supply creates its own demand. Then you had perfect competition. Further, you had the cases of wages and prices being flexible. Okay. Further, you had the condition of labor market determining the equilibrium. So these were the assumptions that you had for the classical economics. Okay. So you could see that the theories that you had in your syllabus of second semester were operating with these different assumptions, okay, and these assumptions were giving you the equilibrium conditions, और यहाँ पे आपको क्या आ रहा था, full employment conditions. Okay, full employment condition में क्या होता था, there was no involuntary unemployment. Whatever the unemployment in the economy was, that was purely because of voluntary cases. Okay, so full employment level, and this full employment level gave you the full employment output. Okay, so these were the cases that you had in the classical theory. Then in Keynesian theory, you had demand creates supply, and Keynes thought of aggregate demand, and aggregate demand was something like AD equal to C plus I plus G. Okay, so there was no open economy at that time, although it can be extended with the inclusion of exports and imports. Okay, further, you had prices being rigid. So prices were rigid for the case of Keynesian idea. Okay, And later on, you had that this was operating for the short run cases. Why short run? Because Keynes said, in the long run, we are all dead. मतलब लॉन्ग रन जैसा कुछ कंसेप्ट होता ही नहीं है, लॉन्ग रन जैसा कोई टर्म ही नहीं है, क्योंकि हम रहेंगे ही नहीं, तो फिर क्या फायदा. So you would see that his ideas were mainly operated in the short run cases. Okay, if you look at neo-Keynesian, then it had the genesis of ISLM. So classicals had Adam Smith and so on, and in neo-Keynesian it was led by Hicks. Okay, so ISLM conditions were there. Further, in Keynesian theory, always remember that autonomous investment was there, and autonomous investment was based on animal spirit. Okay, so these were the cases. Then in neo-Keynesian thing, ISLM conditions were derived, and here you had prices being rigid. Okay, further you could see that Hicks borrowed the Keynesian idea of aggregate demand. Okay, so AD was C plus I plus Z, but there was a distinction here, that here investment was not autonomous. If you talk about G, then G was autonomous as well. If we ignore this, then also it doesn't matter, because this has no difference here. Okay, so I didn't write here, but let's write G is autonomous, that is G bar. So in neo-Keynesian theory, we had I being dependent on the rate of interest. Okay, so I bar minus BI. So as the rate of interest increases, the investment falls. Why? Because the cost of funds increases, meaning you will have lesser profits, and lesser profit will mean lesser investment. Why? Because when you have a number of investors, in that case, some investors will go non-profitable, or you can say they will be in a loss. They won't be making profit. In that case, they won't invest. Okay, so that is the case where you have this idea. And here, in this case, equilibrium was established for two different markets. One was goods market and another was money market. Okay, so in goods market you had y equal to AD, so AD was from this, and in the money market you had money demand. This was from the Keynes, ky minus hi, and this was equal to money supply. So money supply was real money supply m by p. This was being decided by the central bank. Okay, so in the equilibrium, you had money demand equal to money supply. So when you have these two equilibrium conditions, in that case, you could have the equilibrium in neo-Keynesian theory. Okay, so this was the case. And in neo-Keynesian, you discussed about short run and a long run concept. Long run, you can also call medium run. So these were the basic assumptions that you had in your second semester. Okay, so second semester में आपने ये सब चीजें देखी हुई थी. इसमें क्या था, मेनली आप देखोगे प्राइसेस रिजिड थे. प्राइसेस रिजिड का मतलब क्या है कि प्राइस चेंज नहीं होगी. वहीं क्लासिकल के केस में प्राइस फ्लेक्सिबल था. तो आप देख रहे हो कि वेज और प्राइस क्लासिकल के केस में तुरंत एडजस्ट कर जाता था, कोई टाइम नहीं लगता था. अगर इसी टाइम पीरियड पे आप कोई भी पॉलिसी वेरिएबल चेंज करते हो, इन दैट केस द एडजस्टमेंट विल अकर इन दिस करेंट टाइम पीरियड ओनली. और यहां पे क्यों था? क्योंकि एक और एजम्पशन था क्लासिकल में, परफेक्ट इंफॉर्मेशन का. ठीक है, इंफॉर्मेशन सेट सबको पता है, सारे लोग रेशनल हैं, सबके पास इंफॉर्मेशन है. इन दैट केस यू विल हैव द एडजस्टमेंट टेकिंग प्लेस इन दिस करेंट टाइम पीरियड इटसेल्फ. ठीक है, किन्सियन आइडिया में क्या था? किन्सियन आइडिया में प्राइस रिजिड होती थी और ये एक शॉर्ट टर्म में ही देखना होता था, क्योंकि लॉन्ग रन उनका कहना था इन द लॉन्ग रन वी आर ऑल डेड। तो इस केस में डिमांड ही आपका सप्लाई को डिटरमाइन करता था। एंड किन्स सेड दैट आपको क्या करना है, गवर्नमेंट को एक्ट करना है। गवर्नमेंट एक्ट क्यों करेगी? अगर इकोनॉमी डिसइक्विलिब्रियम पे चल रही है तो गवर्नमेंट हैज टू टेक द लीड, एंड दिस विल बी थ्रू द गवर्नमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर। उसमें एक्सपेंशनरी होगा और आपका कंट्रक्शनरी नेचर होगा। क्लासिकल में इसके उल्टा था कि गवर्नमेंट को कोई इंटरवेंशन नहीं करना है, व्हाट वी कॉल लासीफा, जो कि आप लेसिस फेयर लिखते हो, दिस इज लासीफा। सो लासीफा वाज द केस इन द क्लासिकल थ्योरी। सो क्लासिकल थ्योरी में क्या था कि आपको कुछ करना ही नहीं है, मार्केट को खुद से काम करने दो। वाई? बिकॉज इट इज परफेक्ट इंफॉर्मेशन एंड परफेक्ट कंपटीशन, एंड द मार्केट एडजस्टमेंट will occur on its own. So these were the ideas by classical economists. And in Keynesian idea, you had that the government intervention is required. जब आप देखोगे तो किन्स के जो आइडियाज थे 1936 में जो उनकी बुक आई थी उस पे बेस्ड था। और ये बुक कब आया? आपके ग्रेट डिप्रेशन के टाइम के बाद आया। एंड किन्स वाज लुकिंग एट द आइडियाज ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स ड्यूरिंग द ग्रेट डिप्रेशन टाइम। और ग्रेट डिप्रेशन का टाइम में आप देखोगे तो डिमांड जो था कंट्रैक्ट हो गया था। सो किन्स थॉट ऑफ आइडिया दैट if the government increases its expenditure, in that case the aggregate demand will increase, and if the aggregate demand will increase, in that case your output can be increased and the unemployment will reduce। ठीक है, ये सारी कहानियां थी। And then came Hicks in 1940 late. So it was after 1945, you can say. Okay. So this was based on Keynesian ideas only. So there was the upcoming of ISLM। ठीक है, और इसी में आप देखोगे ASAD का कंसेप्ट आया। ठीक है, एग्रीगेट सप्लाई एंड एग्रीगेट डिमांड, दिस बोथ वर्क टू बी वर्क टुगेदर। यहां पे आपका जो कंसेप्ट था एग्रीगेट सप्लाई का, क्योंकि सप्लाई क्रिएट्स इट्स ओन डिमांड, सप्लाई वाज द एक्टिव फोर्स। सो लेबर मार्केट वाज डिटरमाइनिंग द एग्रीगेट सप्लाई, and this aggregate supply was creating the demand, and that was the equilibrium. In the case of Keynesian, you had the aggregate demand determining the supply, and that was the case of equilibrium। ठीक है, तो वहां पे आपने देखा था कुछ y इक्वल टू AD का 45 डिग्री लाइन, समथिंग लाइक दैट। फिर यहां पे इक्विलिब्रियम के लिए ASAD दोनों का कंसेप्ट आया। जब आपसे एग्जाम में पूछा जाएगा ISLM मॉडल, तो ISLM मॉडल का मतलब है न्यू किन्सियन मॉडल। ठीक है, सो न्यू किन्सियन में आपका ISLM है। अब आप जो पढ़ोगे न्यू क्लासिकल, जो कि इस सेमेस्टर का है, न्यू क्लासिकल में आपको ध्यान रखना है यहां भी ISLM है, लेकिन यहां पे मेन जो है ASAD। सो न्यू क्लासिकल मॉडल is also called ASAD model. Third is you have imperfect competition. So imperfect competition होने का मतलब क्या है कि when you have firms, in that case firms will charge some markup। markup का मतलब क्या है कि markup is the profit that you have over your cost। that means whatever the price you charge excess of your cost, that is your markup। so you had the firms charging higher prices। जब फर्म ज्यादा प्राइस चार्ज करेगी अपने मार्जिनल कॉस्ट के कंपैरिजन में, तो वहां पे कुछ ना कुछ प्रॉफिट मिलेगी। और ऐसा क्यों हुआ? क्योंकि इम्परफेक्ट कंपटीशन है। अगर परफेक्ट कंपटीशन होता तो क्या होता? if you had the perfect competition, then if you have in the economy a firm earning some profit, in that case you will have the entry of some new firms, and when new firms will enter the market, in that case the profit of the first firm, that was the incumbent firm, existing firm, it will reduce. The profit of the incumbent firm will fall. And it will happen till it is equal to the marginal cost. Why? Because till the time you have the profit being positive, or you can say till the time you have price greater than marginal cost, the firms will keep on entering. So the entry of firms will put down the prices because of increased competition. So more firms are there. In that case, they will reduce the price. And the price reduction will lead to the marginal cost pricing. Okay. So that was the case of perfect competition. And if imperfect competition is there, in that case, you have the firms having some monopoly power. Okay. In that case, the firms can charge some extra prices. Okay, so that was the case. And this imperfect competition led to the firms charging markup. Okay, and that was the thing when we had price setting relation. Okay, so this is the conclusion from imperfect competition. Okay, further it was said that there would be wage setting relation. Why wage setting? Because wages are to be set. That means the firms and the workers, they will agree for the work. Okay, and they will try to negotiate with the wages. Okay, so wages will be determined by some factors. Okay, and in this theory we had two factors. One was the rate of unemployment and the other was the social security, or you can say the catch-all variables. Catch-all variable was for all the other variables. So one example is social security. So just think, if you have higher unemployment, in that case, whatever the employment opportunities are thrown to the workers will accept that even at a lower wage. क्यों? क्योंकि अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट ज्यादा है, तो आपके जो भी वर्कर हैं उनके पास डिसीजन लेने के लिए क्या है, उनको या तो एम्प्लॉयड रहना है या तो नहीं रहना। एम्प्लॉयड रहने के लिए उनको कम वेज एक्सेप्ट करना पड़ेगा, नहीं तो नहीं मिलेगा, क्योंकि फर्म्स के पास पता है आपके जैसे बहुत सारे हैं, अगर आप एम्प्लॉयड नहीं रहते तो आपको कुछ भी नहीं मिलेगा। सो वर्कर्स थिंक that it's better to earn a lesser wage than being unemployed earning no wage। ठीक है, तो इसलिए क्या होता है कि वेज सेटिंग रिलेशन, यानी कि वेज को जब सेट करते हो तो आपके अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट के साथ निगेटिव रिलेशन होता है। उसके अलावा मैंने बोला कैच ऑल वेरिएबल, जो कि अदर वेरिएबल्स की बात करते हैं। एक एग्जांपल के लिए मैंने बोला सोशल सिक्योरिटी। सपोज इफ द गवर्नमेंट हैज हायर allowance for the social service, okay, in that case suppose unemployment benefits are given. So if you have higher unemployment benefits, in that case the college graduates, suppose they enter the market, that means labor market. In that case, if they are getting some income from the government without working, then some of the graduates will feel that I don't want to enter this labor market. I am well off with this social security itself. My works are done. So whatever the necessary items I have to buy, I can buy with the social security that I am earning from the government. ठीक है, सो ये केसेस थे। सो वेज सेटिंग और प्राइस सेटिंग ये दोनों मिलकर के आपके इक्विलिब्रियम डिसाइड करती है। इसलिए इस मॉडल को हम लोग प्राइस सेटिंग वेज सेटिंग मॉडल भी बोलते हैं। और बेसिकली यही प्राइस सेटिंग और वेज सेटिंग जो है पूरे थ्योरीज को बिल्ड करती है। ओके, सो दिस इज व्हाट यू हैव टू डिस्कस इन द फर्स्ट पार्ट ऑफ दिस सेमेस्टर। ओके, सो फर्स्ट पार्ट में आप ये चीजें पढ़ोगे। देन इन द सेकेंड यूनिट यू विल डिस्कस अबाउट फिलिप्स कर्व एंड रैशनल एक्सपेक्टेशंस थ्योरी। ओके, or you can say role of expectations. So that was the part of new classical theory. In that case, the role of expectations are to be seen. So suppose if you think that the central bank is going to increase the money supply. So if the central bank is increasing the money supply, you could recall that money supply increase will mean LM curve shifting towards right, that you have already discussed in your second semester. So LM curve shifting towards right will mean that you will have the higher output level in the economy through reduction in the rate of interest. Okay, that was one case. And in another case, you have the supply of money being increased leading to the increase in price. ठीक है, जब प्राइस आपका इंक्रीज हो जाएगा तब क्या होगा, तो प्राइस आपका मान लो पूरा ही रेशियो में, पूरा प्रोपोर्शन में इंक्रीज हो गया, तो रियल मनी सप्लाई अगर आपका सेम रह गया तो आपका एलएम कर्व तो पहले ही जैसा हो जाएगा. सो यू विल हैव नो इफेक्ट ऑन द आउटपुट from the increase in the money supply. So this we will discuss in unit 2, and unit 3 will be about the microeconomic foundations of macroeconomic theories. Okay, so we will see macroeconomics from the lens of microeconomics, where you would be discussing about some income hypothesis like permanent income hypothesis and so on. Okay, so this is what you have in your syllabus. In neoclassical, remember that your price will be sticky. Okay, so price is not rigid. Here, price is sticky. Why sticky? Because you have the price being adjusted. Okay, so in this case, you had long run and medium run apart from short run. So long run, medium run is same. Okay, in neoclassical also you will have short run and a long run. This long run is given in your readings by medium run. Medium run is generally used. Why? Because we say in the long run we are all dead. That is the philosophy of Keynes. Okay, so this is what you have to discuss in this semester. So apart from all this, you would see that price is sticky. What is price is sticky? Means price is not flexible. That means price can't change in this current time period itself. मतलब प्राइस जो है अभी के अभी ही सारा चेंज नहीं हो रहा है, जैसे कि क्लासिकल में होता था. आज कोई भी पॉलिसी वेरिएबल चेंज हुआ तो आपका प्राइस भी चेंज होगा, ऐसा नहीं होना. साथ में रिजिड भी नहीं है. रिजिड क्यों नहीं है? क्योंकि प्राइस थोड़ा बहुत चेंज होगा. इसका मतलब है प्राइस इज स्टिकी का कि प्राइस विल एडजस्ट, बट जो प्राइस का चेंज है वो हर टाइम पीरियड पे थोड़ा थोड़ा होता जाएगा. दैट मीन्स if the final outcome is to be price being increased, then price will increase in some proportion in the next period, some another proportion in the next to next year, and so on till the final change is very small, that is negligible. Okay, so these are the things that we have for this semester. Okay, उसमें आपका स्टार्टिंग जो है अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट के केसेस पे है, एम्प्लॉयमेंट के केसेस पे है. देयर आर सर्टेन पैरामीटर्स, सर्टेन डेफिनेशंस लाइक अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट, वर्कर्स, whatever the workers are in the population, that is workforce. Okay, so you will be discussing about all those. Then we will also see employment ratio. We will also see non-employment ratio. So these are the things that we have. Further, we will see quits, layoffs, and so on. So this is what we have to discuss in this semester. So just take a note of all these things, because if you know the assumptions, especially of neoclassical theory, in that case, you can understand why certain conditions are given in your textbooks. So suppose if you know that imperfect competition is there, so firms will be charging some extra price. Okay, so price will be higher than marginal cost, and you will have some markup. Okay, so that you will see, and you could see that price is sticky. That means price will adjust some proportion in the next period and some proportion in the next to next year, and so on. Okay, so this is what we had to discuss about these things in this lecture. Okay, so we will stop it here. This was the brief outline of your syllabus and your approach. Okay, further I would say that if you have the second semester reading of macroeconomics, then try to read that. Okay, only a few of those topics will be repeated in this semester and next to this semester, that is next semester, semester 4. So if you revise that, it would be easier for you to have a continuity. Okay, and whatever the economics you have to deal with from the core, that will be in your second semester itself. So second semester में आपका सबसे important chapters आने वाले हैं, माइक्रो में भी माइक्रो में भी, और इसके बाद आपको सीखने की रिलेटिवली कम जरूरत पड़ेगी, क्योंकि जो भी इकोनॉमिक्स का बेस है वो आपका सेकेंड ईयर तक ही है. So semester 3 and semester 4 you have to work very very hard. मतलब आपको ऐसे नहीं कि पत्थर तोड़ना है, you have to use your brains, you have to learn every concept, you can't ignore anything. Okay, इग्नोर करोगे तो फिर आपको नुकसान है, आप बाकी के अप्लाइड चैप्टर्स जो हैं वो क्लियर नहीं कर पाओगे. सो बाकी के जो पेपर्स आएंगे आपको, जैसे कि गेम थ्योरी आप पढ़ोगे नेक्स्ट ईयर. सो गेम थ्योरी विद बी एप्लीकेशन ऑफ माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स. ठीक है, माइक्रो इकोनॉमिक्स का एप्लीकेशन आप देखोगे फिर से इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड में आएगा, मनी एंड बैंकिंग में यूज होगा. ठीक है, तो ऐसे अब सारे इनके अप्लाइड चीजें देखोगे, फाइनेंस में देखोगे. ठीक है, सो व्हाट एवर यू हैव इन योर सेकेंड सेमेस्टर, you have to go through all that before proceeding to semester 3. So till the college starts, you can complete your second semester reading. आपको तो बस रिवाइज करना है ना, अभी तो आपने एग्जाम दिया था. So you can hardly take 3 to 4 days and get over that. Okay, so we will stop it here. Take care, bye bye.